Hooks are a new addition in React, and they let us use React features without writing a class. So initially, we had to write class for everything, like we have seen the functional component. Sorry, yeah, the component life cycle using class in the last section. In this session, we will focus on use effect and use state hooks. Okay, and we'll also try to understand component life cycle using these hooks. Okay, or basically the functional component life cycle. Right. Uh, let's get started. So we'll take the same example. Okay, where we had a counter object, right? So we had this counter. So we had this app class, right? App object, and then we called that counter component in this app.js. So we'll keep that code as it is, okay? And we'll go ahead and modify the counter.js with the functional component. First, let's see what this use state hook is. Okay, so they are like functions, as I said. Let's see, use state. Let's create a function component. For that, the shortcut key is RFC and press a tab. Okay. For class, we had RCC and tab, then you get the template. For functions, give RFC and then press tab in Visual Studio Code. Okay. Now, in this example, we have imported two hooks, right? Use effect and use state. So let's do one thing. In this function, we have this twice. Now, if I simply save this, it has nothing. It has just the word counter, which we are calling from app.js. Okay. This was the same code. So if I go ahead and see, I had this show and add button, which we saw in class. So same button is there now. Let's park it for now. After use state, we'll come to use effect, and that time we'll try to understand the life cycle. Let's focus on this counter. So counter text is coming uh, from this counter JS. Okay. Now here, let me create a variable. Give const. Let's say cnt comma set cnt, and then I'm giving use state comma 0. This is a variable. Okay, so cnt is a variable, and the default value of cnt variable is 0. And if we have to update the value of cnt, we have to call a function called set count and pass the value. Okay, so let's say I want to display the value of CNT. Okay, so I give here counter space, and in the curly brackets I can simply mention that variable name. Okay, if I save this and go to this page, I'm seeing counter 0. The 0 is coming because the value of CNT is 0 at this time. Okay. Now, if I want to update the value of CNT, simply if I call set CNT, and let's say I'm typing the value 5. Now, what has happened? The value of CNT has been changed to 5. But let's say, let me do with a button click here. So let me create a button, okay? Paragraph, button, increment. I'm just giving click. So this is the form, this is the page. So by default, we are getting the value of counter as 0. And then if you click on this button, the counter should increase. That means the value of CNT should increment. Okay. So for that, what we can do, we can create a function here. So I'm creating an arrow function. And doing, let's say, const increment. Okay. And even arrow function. And inside this function, whenever this function is called, I want to increment the value of CNT plus 1. Okay. Now, if you see this screen, if I click on this, it is not increasing because the function we wrote, the function increment, should be called. Okay. So when we should call when we click on this button. So the button I'm going to give a on click event bracket. I'm simply calling the increment function. So now when you click on this button, increment function will be called. And increment function, we are calling a set count, uh, you know, function to update the value of CNT. This is how we update. Normally, we might have seen in JavaScript simply use a variable and increment, but here we are incrementing the value of CNT using set count method, and these are just variables. This can be anything over here. Okay, and the reason why we have used use state hook is it retains the value of CNT in the entire page. That is why we are able to access the value here. Okay, so now let's see the result. Now I have this page, counter is 0 by default. If I click on this counter, it is increasing. See, again it's increasing. So this has achieved using the hook use state. Okay, this is how we create a variable and store a use effect or give a default value using use state. All right. Now, so this was to make you understand the use state. Let's go ahead and understand the uh, functional component life cycle. Okay. So what we'll do is we will we will create the hook use effect. Okay, use effect we are calling, and use effect is a hook which will accept two parameters. So let's see one thing. So I'm inside the hook, I'm giving an arrow function. Now in this arrow function, I'm just going to give it console dot log, and I'm going to give component mounting. That means as soon as a component is loaded, this use effect will be called, and that's why we are trying to show you that component is mounting. Okay, and all right, so only mounting is what I am trying to print at this time. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to give a console log also here. Here. Okay. You see, as soon as I open this page, component mounting has been called. So remember, we never called this use effect hook. It has been automatically called, and then component mounting has been written in the console. Okay, so this is the same as component did mount that we tried in the life cycle while trying through class component. Okay, so this is through use effect hook. Same thing we are going to achieve. Now this is for mounting. So let's say I want to run log uh, and log an entry when the component is unmounted. Okay, so let me give a so that for that we have to return a function. Okay, return giving an arrow function over here. So this return function will be called whenever the component is unmounted or removed from the screen. I'm writing component unmounting. Okay, give here arrow. All right. So now, as soon as we load the page, component mounting will be called. As soon as we remove this from the screen, component unmounting will be called. So, all right. Now let me refresh this. See, component mounting has been called, and if you click on the show and hide, it will remove the component, and then unmounting is called. Same example I've taken from the last session, so you understand the logic. Because this app.js is as it is. I have not made any changes to this page. Okay, it is still calling the counter uh, component only. The only difference is we have changed the counter.js. Instead of using class, I'm using function at this time. All right, to achieve the same goal. So component mounting and component unmounting we have achieved. That is uh, versus component did mount and component will unmount, right? Equivalent to that we have achieved. The third phase in the life cycle is updating. That means whenever a component is getting updated, uh, the component did mount will call. Instead of that, here we are going to use um, the same use effect hook. Okay, now if you see, whenever I'm clicking uh, the counter, okay, it is, see, it is not showing anything. Let me, I refresh this. Okay, I refresh this, and then first time mounting is called. I click on unmounting, and then unmounting is called, and again mounting. That is because here in use effect there's an additional parameter here. Okay, so I am passing, let's say, empty section. Okay, so in the bracket, use effect, the first parameter is this entire function. Second is this, the bracket that I've given, empty collection. So now if I run this particular code, the component mounting is called. I click on this. See, the counter is increasing, but unmounting is not getting called. Okay, because here I have given an empty. So if we have a requirement where if something has to happen only when the component is mounted and nothing should happen when you unmount it, here give this array as blank. So the purpose of use effect is, if you want to call or invoke this use effect whenever we update this cnt variable. Okay, so for that in this array, I'm giving CNT. Now what will happen is whenever this CNT is getting updated, use effect will be called. So let's see what happens. I refresh this. Okay, component has been mounted. I click on this. It is calling unmounting also, because that is one strange thing with use effect. Every time what it does is it will unmount and again mount. Okay, so now it is incrementing. See, it is incrementing. It is calling this uh, use effect hook. All right. If I want to log, let's say I want to log whenever it is getting incremented, I want to log. So in this increment function, I can give console.log component is updated. Right. So when a component is updated, whenever it be updated, it is going to print that. So let's see. So I refresh this component mounted, and if I click again, it will say unmount, right? That is mounting and unmounting. Now it is mounted. If I click on this, so it is calling component is updated. So it updates, for some reason it will unmount and again mount. That is something that we have noticed in use effect. But same thing will not happen when we use a class, which is fine. It is just a part of it. When we update also, see it is update, component is updated, unmounting and mounting, like that, right? So this is what use effect is, and using which we have understood the life cycle of a component that is created using function, or we can say functional component. All right. So please go through this and let me know if you have any questions. All right. Thank you.